Welcome again, brethren, to another study. Tonight we're going to go ahead and discuss, is it a requirement to hold a certificate of fellowship to teach the Davidian message? The reason why we're going to bring this study today is because some of you may be aware we are currently having what's called a New Code Research Committee meetings. And we're going over the codes one by one. And today we actually got into volume 11, number 3. And we'll show you in the next slide or two what that is. But questions about the point of teaching the message. Who is qualified to teach the message? And so we thought this would be a very good study. It's something that needs to be clarified because there's a lot of misapplications to the qualifications of a Davidian teacher. So we have prayed. We ask that you do the same. Claim the promise of John 13:16, and he will be faithful and guide you into all truth. So please pray, and after you've done that, we will begin. Okay. The specific New Code reference is the following. Many have asked who is eligible to lead in the service of the work. The answer that goes out from Mount Carmel is that anyone not holding a certificate of fellowship cannot be a Davidian teacher. He can listen only. Now pay careful attention to those words, brethren, because we're going to come back and compare that to the other parts of what inspiration says. Yeah, just granting a certificate of fellowship is a cheap thing. So here in one sense they say it's a supreme important thing, and then the next sentence it says it's a cheap thing. So this already, brethren, should wake us up to convolution. This New Code statement is really suspect. That in itself would have no significance. Who receives the certificate? Those who have personally studied all the message and believe it. Those overcoming temptation, those complying with all the requirements, those who put their treasure where moth and thieves cannot enter, those who keep all the commandments, those who are not flesh eaters, drunkards, or tobacco users, those who do not rob God of tithes and offerings. So we see in the latter part of this statement that yes, these are very important qualifications to be a teacher. You cannot teach in the same on the same token be a person that doesn't obey the message, and the two cannot go together, obviously. So we see a convolution here. Okay, this is what's so scary about some of the new codes, is the convolution of truth and error, and we have to be able to rightly divide the word of truth. All right, so who gives the authorization to teach? God or an association? That's our question. First of all, we got to know that it is a serious work. Not many of you should become teachers, my brothers, for you know that we who teach will be judged with greater strictness. So this is a very serious warning that if you take up teaching, you had better know that you have a very grave responsibility. And that responsibility, as we go through, is very clear. We must be teachers that teach and live the message. All right, so our first the rod reference is question number 133. The symbolic code says, teach only that which is published. Will you please explain whether this restriction is intended to include the Bible, Spirit of Prophecy, and the Shepherd's Rod literature altogether, or just the writings of the rod? Answer. The Bible and the books of the Spirit of Prophecy being the sole source of the shepherd's rod message, therefore when the rod is taught, the Bible and the Spirit of Prophecy are taught. And since none but the Spirit of Truth, who transmitted the mysteries of inspiration, can interpret them, then those who attempt to teach them without this inspired interpretational authority inevitably fall into the forbidden practice of private interpretation. 2 Peter 1:20. The great evil which has brought Christendom into present almost boundless state of schism and consequent confusion, strife, and impotency, as we dare not follow in such a path, we must therefore, as teachers of the Shepherd's Rod, the official publications of the Davidian Seventh-day Association, teach only in the light of the rod those passages which in one way or another need to be interpreted. Thus, only will all present truth believers ever become of the same mind, seeing eye to eye and speaking the same things. As such as choose to engage in private interpretation are respectively asked to desist from teaching in the name of the rod and at its expense. Let them, like honest men, teach in their own names and at their own expense. You see, brethren, this is so powerful and far-reaching. Now, when we see that private interpretation is rejected from the Lord's rod as part of teaching properly, we look to some of today's false teachers. For instance, we've posted, and you can see this in some of our videos, we posted about Doug Batchelor and some of his false teachings about the kingdom, Isaiah 66, 15 to 21. We've shown false ideas from Walter Veith. So these are private teachers. And then, of course, we have the very, I dare say, deceptive teacher today among the Davidians, which is a man named Lennox Sam. And he's done tremendous amount of private interpretation, all in the name of the rod. And we can see that they are asked to quit doing this, but of course we know that the deception is so strong that they continue forward. All right, now we're going to get into some spirit prophecy that makes our teaching really come into focus. Brothers and sisters, how much work have you done for God during the past year? Do you think that it is those men only who have been ordained as gospel ministers that are to work for uplifting of humanity? No, no. Everyone who names the name of Christ is expected by God to engage in this work. The hands of ordination may not have been laid upon you, but you are nonetheless God's messengers. Very powerful, brethren, that you go to work with the gift. And if the gift is teaching, don't let anyone hold you back. If you have tasted that the Lord is gracious, if you know his saving power, you can no more keep from telling this to someone else than you can keep the wind from blowing. You will have a word in season for him that is weary. You will guide the feet of the straying back to the fold. Your efforts to help others will be untiring because God's Spirit is working in you. Very powerful, brethren. Have you tasted the powers of the world to come? Have you been eating the flesh and drinking the blood of the Son of God? Then although ministerial hands may not have been laid upon you in ordination, Christ has laid his hands upon you and has said, you are my witnesses. Wow, brethren. Very beautiful. Christ himself ordains those he gives the gifts to. Many souls will be saved through the labors of men who have looked to Jesus for their ordination and orders. Amen. Let me tell you, if your heart is in the work and you have faith in God, you need not depend upon the sanction of any minister or any people. If you go right to work in the name of the Lord in a humble way, doing what you can to teach the truth, God will vindicate you. Very, very good, brethren. This is found in General Conference Bulletin, April 3, 1902, paragraph 34. These are one of these precious quotes that I place upon my wall. I call it the wall of inspiration. I actually have two walls, and one of these days we're going to make a video of how the hub of the work from this end goes, so you can see how we put together the work that the Lord has given us to do. But anyway, this is so powerful, brother, that we do have this as one of our quotes on the wall, and very, very good to know this one. All right, so now let's look at the rod and see what the rod says compared to that new code reference. What identifies one as a Davidian Seventh-day Adventist? Question number 150. As the Davidian Seventh-day Adventist Association does not have a formal membership, what evidence can you give to identify himself as a member of the organization, and how can he establish the length of time he has been with it? Answer. One's support of the timely Davidian message and his living out its principles, baptism, Sabbath observance, along with the rest of the Ten Commandments, vegetarianism, dress reform, total abstinence from tobacco and alcohol beverages, and all as contained in the Spirit of Prophecy are the truest witnesses of his affiliation, the only genuine visible certification of the fact. Okay, let me read that again. The only genuine visible certification of the fact. These are the only absolutely convincing evidences of one's worthiness to membership in the Davidian Seventh-day Adventist Association. Just how long one has been a member of the association depends entirely upon how long one has known and lived these principles. To those who make requests, the association will send an application blank for fellowship. If the applicant is unable to comply in full with all the requirements of the message, then to his application he must attach a satisfactory statement of explanation. Otherwise, a certificate of fellowship cannot be granted. Answer 5, page 82 and 83. Is one a member without the certificate of fellowship? Question 153. May one be a member of the association without holding a certificate of fellowship? Answer, yes. One may be a member without holding the certificate of fellowship. But to be accredited member, privileged to enjoy the fullest of all benefits which the association affords, he must hold the certificate. All right, so we see very clearly that, first of all, inspiration says, yes, you are a member without the certificate of fellowship. But you want to enjoy the privileges and so forth that the association has, such as, for example, some of the older folks wanted the help for their retirement and different lending out or giving out of money for certain needs and so forth. These are all benefits that the certificate of fellowship provides. So yes, this is a true statement and very, very clear. All right, now we're going to get to a very interesting letter that brings home the point. Even though it's not published, we thought it'd be of interest. This is a letter from Brother Hodoff to M.J. Bingham, December 11th, 1946. Now, let me give you a little background on this. Brother Bingham had been removed from the Davidian Association due to the improprieties that he was involved in while Brother Hodoff was in Bulgaria on his trip. This was in the mid-40s, I believe. And so when he got back, Brother Bingham was relieved of his duties and taken off the camp. And so Brother Bingham continued to write letters to Brother Hodoff, begging him basically to bring him back, to forgive him and to give him another chance. And so this is one of the many letters that were back and forth between the brethren. And this is important. May we also frankly say that we do believe that you are allowing yourself to worry too much about your certificate After all, Brother Bingham, it is only a external evidence of membership and should not affect your Christian experience one way or another. So we find this is very, very telling, brethren, because the prophet is letting Brother Bingham know that their certificate isn't going to affect your Christian experience. And certainly, if Brother Bingham could not be allowed to teach, that would affect his Christian experience. So we found this as a very, very enlightful. All right, so brethren, let's give our summary here of what we've learned. The new code, volume 11, number 3, page 1011, is clearly in contradiction to the original rod from the Lord. This is why we have to say that when we're doing this study, we're going over new code by new code, and we're finding out what is in contradiction and what is in harmony. And we see that volume 11, number 3, is clearly in contradiction with the message. Number 2, the Spirit of Prophecy clearly shows God will vindicate you if your heart is in the work. No sanctions needed by ministers or people. Number 3, we must be very careful, underline very, very careful if we become teachers. We are held to a much higher standard. Number 4, no need for a fellowship certificate to be a Davidian as long as we are faithful in the tenets of the message, tithes, reforms, obedience, etc. These are the only genuine, visible certification of the fact. I want to pause for a minute and dwell on number 4. You know, we have quite a large amount of private individuals that aren't associated with the Davidian associations. For instance, they belong to no group. Nothing with Waco, nothing with Mountain Dale, nothing with Beijing, nothing with any of the groups. Yet they proclaim to be a Davidian. But, brethren, you will know them by their fruits. They're pocketing the tithes. They're teaching others to pocket the tithes. They're teaching people to be independent, self-serving, proclaim the message the way you see fit, or the pure rod, they call it. But the pure rod is against this whole idea that the message teaches, that we've got to be faithful in our tithes. And to be faithful in your tithes doesn't mean you make your home the storehouse. And brother, this is a very, very sneaky Satan trick. So be careful of those brethren that come out there and say, oh, you know what, I'm a Davidian teacher and I'm teaching, I've got my own website, you can donate to me and I'll, give you the pure, unfiltered, original rod and all this. That's a trick, brethren, and we have other videos you can watch. Can my house be the storehouse, and so forth, to watch, to learn more about this. But the message is very clear. In fact, in answer, I believe it's 4 and 5, you'll find much good information. One of the particular questions is, can my house be the storehouse? And it goes very clear into saying that no one is entitled to have their own house as their storehouse. And so we have to be very careful, brethren, that there's a lot of tricks that Satan is putting out there today. And so anyway, we thank you very much for paying attention to this study and learning, if you can, what the message teaches about how we can go about teaching the message and who's qualified. So until next time, we continue to pray that the Lord will guide you into all truth. Thank you for listening. Amen.